Our rules are simple, but the challenge is great. No shoulder pets, tames that can be carried, or typical boss dinos allowed. That means no Rexes, Therazinos, or any other dinos people normally use in these fights. Equipped with level 150 saddles across the board, our 19 contenders will be backed by the commanding presence of a loyal Uranus providing that extra boost. No Overseer because the movement speed required to get through the tech cave, then chase the Overseer during the fight would shorten our list by a lot. It's important to note that tames in this series aren't typically used during boss battles because of the amount of mutations you need to make them competitive, but all of the dinos competing will have around 23,000 health and 1200% melee. This will give them all a fair shot at defeating at least one of the Guardians. It won't always be feasible to reach these stats depending on the dinos we're using, but I'll let you know the amount of mutations and levels it took in order to get there. You can make the call on if the juice is worth the squeeze based off whatever server settings you're using. A passing score is earned if the dino emerges victorious in the boss battle, showcasing its prowess. A failing score doesn't imply that the dino lacks the potential to triumph. It simply means that at this stage, it may not be the most practical choice. Now let's take a look at our competitor and get into the battles. The Kentrosaurus. This spiky beast is typically found in the inhospitable places on the map, such as the volcano and rocky regions. The Kentro is an often overlooked dino because it doesn't really offer much to the tribe. It doesn't have a saddle, you can't ride it, you can't carry it, so what application is there for it? According to the wiki, the Kentro reflects damage back at the attacker, causes a bleed to any small creatures it impales with its tail, and gets a pack bonus. Creatures in this challenge require a saddle, but I made an exception here to see how the damage reflection would work against the bosses. I still kept the stats in line with the challenge, and to reach these you'll need 25 mutations and 58 extra levels. I applied all the mutations in melee, added 32 levels to health, and 26 into melee on top of the 100% imprint. Let's see how these prickly fellas perform. First up, the Gamma Broodmother. The small size of the Kentros made it easy to enter the arena. They're pretty slow, so maneuvering proved to be quite a challenge. Right away I knew that we'd be struggling at the beta and alpha levels because without a saddle these dudes just take too much damage. The pack bonus doesn't seem to work on the tame Kentros, but I was actually impressed with their damage output here, and it snagged us a pretty easy win over the Gamma Broodmother and put our first win on the board. Gamma Megapithecus started off with a swing and a miss as he started chucking rocks pretty early. This was a pretty standard ass whooping as the Kentros surrounded him pretty quickly. One thing I noticed during this fight, and you can too if you look at the health bar, the damage reflection actually works against the bosses. Keep note of how much his health bar moves at this stage. Monkey Man proved to be weak this time, and the Kentros get another pass. The Gamma Dragon teased us with a touch and go in the beginning, and we had to wait for a round of fireballs and pteranodons before we could actually take a crack at him. When he finally landed, I struggled to get in close due to the snack-sized Stego's movement speed, but once we did, it was toe-biting strategy 101. It was damn near flawless. The Kentros almost took no damage from this point on, and the dragon never took off again. I could have taken a nap on the back of Commander Utes if I wanted. I wish all the dragon fights went this way. The Kentros stopped the Gamma Dragon into the dirt and earned our third pass. With the blue portal up, we were ready to rock and impale the Beta Broodmother and all her horrible children. This fight started off pretty rough. I struggled with positioning and the bulk of the Kentros remained on one side of the Broodmother for far too long. If you don't know, the Broodmother has a wide cone of attack and surrounding her is probably more critical than any of the other bosses. I corrected the positioning and the damage output was actually pretty solid, but before I knew it, Kentros were getting crushed left and right. I actually did this fight more than once to correct the positioning, but it never changed the outcome. The Kentros just took too much damage without saddles. The problems don't end there, which you'll see later on. For the Beta Broodmother, she wound up the victor this time and finished off the entire party, and handed us our first fail for the night. Beta Megapithecus, the slow, yellow monkey that should probably be blue. As usual, we surround him with little issue. His knockback actually aids in this when you have slow dinos. Before I knew what was happening, he was missing a huge chunk of his health. At first, I thought it was the damage reflection. I thought it was actually scaling with the damage output from the bosses, but that turned out not to be true. The damage reflected from the Kentros is always the same no matter how hard they hit. I didn't notice a difference in health drop between the rock throws or the slams. Whatever that amount is, it was enough to end the Beta Ape and earn us another pass. With the Beta Dragon up next, I would normally be pretty worried considering we didn't beat the Broodmother and we were losing Kentros during the Megapithecus fight. The Beta Dragon approached us with confidence and we started things off pretty hot. I maneuvered the Kentros the best I could, but it was like no matter what I did, one or two would always be away from the center just far enough and get clipped. Something else to point out here, the Kentro's drag weight is 250. That's the same as the Carno. I think we've seen enough to decide that the drag weight isn't the factor that causes bosses to completely ignore some species. I think we give Wildcard too much credit. It's probably just a bug, if we're being honest, and I doubt it's intentional. The Beta Dragon was dishing out quite a bit of damage in this fight, and he flew away a total of 3 times. I didn't think we'd be able to blast the 4th time because the Kentros were hanging on by a thread. In the end, the toe strategy pays dividends, and I'm able to wrap up the dragon fight with the Kentros just out of reach, while they have maximum damage output and score another pass. It was time for our first red portal as we were hungry for alpha blood. Did you know if you're in photo mode and the camera's outside the boss bubble when you enter the arena, then it kills your player? Now you do. Alpha Monkey Man was on us super quick, and dare I say he caught me by surprise? The Kentros fired back and had him surrounded early on. My vision was obscured by shit, but I was able to watch the slaughter with little issue. The damage the Kentros took was just way too high, and they wouldn't last long. I know there's been some requests for direwolves, but I think we're going to get a little more of the same, like the inability to take shots. I think they'll probably do just about as good as this, but we'll have to see. Saddles are just too important. The damage mitigation is a necessity if you want to take on these higher difficulty bosses. Kentros couldn't cut it in the first alpha fight, and I had to throw another fail on the board. I was actually kind of confident going into the Alpha Dragon fight. I used to think it was always hopeless, if we had lost boss fights up to this point, but ever since the discovery of the ankle special, I feel like the dragon has dropped down a peg or two. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, basically, when you bring in smaller dinos into this fight, they can get close to the dragon's feet and he can't hit them. It's a bit cheesy, but maybe the dragon's just stretched more, so he can suck on his own toes. This fight didn't go well at all. On the second landing, the dragon was already toasting some of the Kentros. Every time he came down, I was able to get in close and dish out some pain, but the lack of saddles made this fight laughable. The battlefield was riddled with Kentro corpses, and at one point, I had 1 Kentro left. The little guy fought with so much spirit, but when the dragon flew back down, this asshole not only one-shot him, he cooked his body with some fire breath before getting a taste of my sweet cheeks and handing us the last fail of the night. I had a lot of fun with this one, and we have many more to go. If you get a chance, check out my initial reaction I posted yesterday for the new game Pale World. Let me know your thoughts on the video itself, because I went with a format of a bunch of jump cuts and narration instead of a long drawn-out thing. I'm truly curious how it's been received. I hope you found this episode enjoyable, so please feel free to hit me up in the comments and give me any feedback you may have, or let me know what dinos you'd like to see in this series. As always, I ask that if you're new to this channel or you've been lurking in the shadows, please like and subscribe to help this channel grow. The support I've been getting while making this series has been outstanding, so thank you so much. You are all awesome, and I hope to keep this going for years to come. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one.